The Meaning of Maggie, Chapter 5. My heart leapt into my throat, and Layla leapt from beside Dad and ran into Mom's arms. Thank God you're home! I tried to pick him up, but I couldn't, and I didn't know what to do. I got him to sit up, but I couldn't carry him. I wanted to call 911, but Dad wouldn't let me, and Layla was talking so fast, and she sounded so scared. Mom squeezed her close to her side and turned to Dad. Danny, are you okay? Her voice sounded weird and shaky, but Dad's voice sounded just like Dad. Better than ever, he smiled. Go ahead, I got this. Mom stepped around Dad and walked down the hall with Layla pulled close so they almost looked like one person. Girls, help your dad, okay? I'll be right back. Where was she going? We had a major situation and she was worried about Layla. Layla wasn't lying on the floor. Layla's legs were wide awake. I ran to the phone and hit 9 immediately. I'd always wanted to call 911. It had always seemed so thrilling when Smokey the Bear talked about it. So high stakes, so heroic. But right then, it just felt necessary. Tiffany yanked the phone out of my hands before I got to the 1-1. What are you doing? I'm calling for help. What do you think I'm doing? She put the phone back on the receiver. He's on the floor, not on fire. Now grab an arm and a leg. We're going to pick him up. We can't pick him up. He probably weighs 400 pounds. Dad didn't like that. Excuse me. I am a very solid 160. Have been since I was 17. Now who wants to get Twister from the closet? I've been warming up for hours. Tiffany giggled. No way. You couldn't beat me. I beat Layla. Why do you think she's so upset? Dad winked. Because you're on the floor, I yelled. Am I? He joked. I hadn't noticed. Tiffany put her arms around Dad's chest. Maggie, grab an arm and a leg. I did what she said, which felt weird because I never did what she said. We're going to pick him up on the count of 3, okay? I was nervous. Dad's ice-cold arms and legs pressed against mine. Ready? 1, 2... No, stop! I yelled. We should wait for Mom. I'll drop him. This was one of the times Mom would have wanted me to pull up my bootstraps. But I just couldn't, and Dad agreed with me. Yeah, let's just wait. I don't want to get dropped. I fell off the stage at a Stones concert once, and I don't want to relive that again. You can do it. You can do it, Maggie, Tiffany insisted. Just use your knees and not your back. Ready? For some reason, I believed her. I pulled my metaphorical bootstraps up as close to my knees as they would get, and when I heard 3, we stood together and carried Dad back into his chair. Tiffany gave me a little shove. Good job, Maggie. I held my aching back like an old lady. Oh, thanks. Dad tugged his sleepy arm with his less sleepy arm back onto his armrests. Thank you, girls. I promise not to do that again. I stood back and surveyed the damage. Dad's table was toppled over onto the floor, his pills were scattered everywhere, and the TV remote was in pieces next to his ashtray. Cigarette butts were flung all over the carpet, and ash was covering everything, including the National Geographic about Pompeii, which was funny, but not at the time. I kneeled down and picked up a handful of pills. What happened, Dad? Oh, it was just an accident. I dropped a cigarette on the floor, and when I went to pick it up, I lost my balance and fell out of the chair. It's no big deal. It certainly was a big deal. It seemed like a big deal deep down in my guts, and it seemed like a big deal because Layla was crying, and it seemed like a big deal because Mom was with her, and it seemed like a big deal because I had never picked Dad up before. That was Mom's job. Tiffany kneeled next to me and put the remote back together. Go get Dad a blanket, she whispered. Why? I whispered back, even though I didn't know why we were whispering. He looks cold. I remembered his ice-cold arms and legs, and I stood up and headed down the hall. I opened the closet just as Mom was closing Layla's door. Hey, sweetheart, what do you need? Mom's eyes were fuzzy, and the freckles on her face were flushed with red. I'm getting a blanket for Dad. Is everything okay? Is Layla okay? I reached for her door. Maybe I can help? Don't worry, everybody's fine. Layla's just tired. Let's leave her alone to rest, okay? How's Dad? I picked him up. Well, Tiffany and I picked him up, but I did most of the lifting. I'm a lot stronger than I look. Mom smiled. Yes, you are. I got a blanket for Dad, and we went back to the living room where Tiffany was brushing his hair. Look at me, I'm good as new. Mom kissed Dad's cheek. Decided to take up yoga, I am assuming? Tiffany laughed. No, Twister. Everyone was joking and laughing and gallivanting, but I had to get down to business. Dad, you have to stop smoking. You could have burned the house down. Tiffany agreed. Seriously, Dad, it's really uncool. Dad was sort of obsessed with being cool. In fact, before his legs fell asleep, he did all kinds of super cool stuff like cartwheels and somersaults. I don't remember any of it, but Layla does. One time, she even saw Dad do a backflip. This was when his balance was just getting fuzzy, and Layla held his cane, and Mom held his hand, and when he let go, he did a full rotation in the air before landing on his feet. He toppled over a second later, but he nailed the landing. He nailed the landing. Layla said he couldn't stop smiling for a week, and sometimes even now he'll say, Remember the backflip, Layla? Layla? And Layla will roll her eyes and say, Yeah, Dad, I remember you nailed the landing. But he had to give up whatever cool he thought smoking gave him, and Tiffany wouldn't let it go until he was convinced. I'm your coolest daughter, Dad, and I swear there's nothing cool about smoking. Okay, Dad said, I hear you. Layla came into the room. What's going on? We're forcing Dad to give up smoking for the greater good of our lungs and humanity, I explained. Layla nodded. It's really disgusting, Dad. Okay, I quit, I promise. Dad looked up at Layla with a smile. Just for you. While Dad was A-okay, something was still bothering me. I had never thought about Dad being alone with his legs fast asleep, and what that meant. It had never seemed dangerous until tonight when we found him on the floor. His hands and feet were getting more and more sleepy, and I wished I knew why. Maybe I could figure out how to wake them up. Every time I tried to look up his disease, though, my resources were lacking. For some reason, we never had an M encyclopedia, and the one thing I knew about his disease was the first word started with an M. So not only did I know nothing about it, I also didn't know anything about mammoths, the Milky Way, or Montana. Mom never let me read the pamphlets while we waited for Dad at the doctor's office either. She'd say they were filled with propaganda, and then I'd say, Geez, hippie, calm down. And then she'd take my M&Ms away, and then I'd say I'm sorry, and then she'd give the M&Ms back, and then we'd take quizzes and magazines to find out if we were summers or falls. I'd have to step up my research about the sleepiness. Right after I stepped up my research about the migration of monarch butterflies for my science project, but before I stepped up my research about Franklin Roosevelt and his sleepy legs, it only seemed right to figure out Dad's sleeping legs first. I went to the bathroom to give my face a good splash of cold water, hoping it would scare away my residual weirdness I had left inside. When I pulled the towel away from my face, Mom was next to me. So everyone's voted for pizza for dinner. You in? Sounds good, I shrugged. You don't sound too excited for pizza. And you're always excited for pizza. I don't know. I couldn't find the right words. I felt like there was so much to say and also nothing to say at all, but I tried. That was scary. Oh, Maggie, Dad's fine. You saw him. He's totally fine. Then why do I feel so weird? Should we be scared? Mom knelt in front of me. We shouldn't be scared, honey. Not even a little. She took my hand and squeezed. We should be brave. Chapter 6. Dad's fall led to more fall, but of autumn variety. The leaves turned and the temperature dropped, and some other stuff happened that wasn't really important because then it was Halloween. Halloween! The single best day of the year. The day I would make a national holiday once I was president. Schools would be closed, but banks would stay open, and instead of money, they would hand out buckets and buckets of candy. Layla and Tiffany were both home on Halloween night, which was weird because they should have been at parties dressed up as hotter versions of themselves. But Halloween was on a school night, and Mom never allows hotness on school nights. So they stayed in and helped me get ready for trick or treating. What? I'm still a kid. I can go trick or treat. There's nothing wrong with it. They tried to convince me to be a ton of things involving makeup, high heels, and tight dresses, but I opted for an homage to one of my heroes, Albert Einstein. Layla teased my hair into a tizzy, and Tiffany sprayed it with white with Halloween hair dye. We used Dad as a model for my mustache, and Layla penciled in the perfect whiskers with eyeliners. I made a bow tie out of my scarf, put on a sweater, and ta-da! I was a genius. I was so excited to hit the streets, but for some reason Dad wasn't feeling great. Probably because I told him I wouldn't share any candy with him, which was only 90% true, because I'd given him all my Smarties, because I hated Smarties, because they're like fake candy. Anyway, I begged him to go with me because he'd never been with me, and Mom was stuck at work, and the kids who trick or treat alone get kidnapped. Okay, I'll go, but I don't have a costume. That's when I had the best idea ever. I found a stack of black and gray construction paper and started cutting. I cut out a few big boulders and scotch taped them to his shirt. Ta-da! Let's hit the streets. Wait, what am I? I tapped the wheel on his chair. You're the Rolling Stones. That's pretty cool. He laughed and we rolled out the door. Layla and Tiffany joined us halfway up the driveway in their last minute costumes. Layla wore a sweatshirt with the neck cut out and said she was an aerobics instructor, and Tiffany wore a sweatshirt with the neck cut out and said she was a punk rocker. Whatever. All that mattered was they were there and we were together. And they could take over pushing Dad up the hill because my arms were about to break off. We knocked on all kinds of doors, and every time I explained Dad's costume, I got a big laugh and an extra handful of candy, which made me think I should bring this guy everywhere. On our way down the hill, Layla and Tiffany headed back home early because they had eaten too much candy, and by too much, I mean 3 candy corn. I was sharing a Twix with Dad when I heard someone shout my name, and that someone was an angel sent straight from heaven, even though he was dressed as a zombie sent from the other place. It was Clyde. My knees buckled as Clyde walked his bike over to Dad and me. I thought that was you. You look great. Albert Einstein, right? God, we have so much in common. I also thought I looked great. Yeah, Albert Einstein. I love him. Well, not like that. I don't love him. We'd just be friends if he were alive. Nothing more. So, what are you, a zombie? Dad answered before Clyde could. You're a zombie, Buddy Holly, right? Clyde's face lit up. You're the only one who's gotten my costume all night. Really? The black glasses make you a dead ringer. Dad nudged me. Get it? Dead ringer? I wanted to disappear. I couldn't believe Dad would humiliate me at this critical moment in my relationship with Clyde. But Clyde laughed, so I just laughed too. I tried to get my brother to be the big bopper, but he wanted to be James Bond. Sean Connery, James Bond, right? Dad asked. Clyde smiled. Yeah, because he had the coolest cars. Clyde nodded. Exactly. Well, I better go. My mom will kill me if I'm late for dinner. That's impossible, I pointed out. You're already dead. I guess you're right, Clyde laughed, but I don't want to chance it. He got on his bike. It was nice meeting you, Mr. Mayfield. See you at school, Maggie. And then he rode away into the moonlight. Dad unlocked his wheels and turned toward me. So that's Clyde? That's Clyde. I sighed with my whole heart in my throat. You're right. He is really cool. And he thinks you look great. I know! When we got home, Mom already had dinner ready, and I pulled on my PJs but left my crazy hair because it was hilarious. Dad wheeled himself over to the stereo and put on Sticky Fingers by the Rolling Stones, and the house lit up with brown sugar. We took our seats, and I blessed the Lord for these our gifts of spaghetti and meatballs, and then Dad dropped his fork. No big deal, right? His fingers were probably still sticky from Snickers we snuck before dinner. In fact, maybe the Rolling Stones were in a similar predicament when they named the album. He picked his fork up again, guided it to his noodles, lifted it to his mouth, and dropped it all over his cream t-shirt. Now Eric Clapton was eating Dad's spaghetti. His next attempt was more determined, more focused. He gripped the handle of the fork with his whole hand. Holding a fork like this is totally against the law of Mom, but it felt wrong to call him out right here. Scooped and lifted again. The whole bite dropped into his lap. Layla and Tiffany locked eyes with their plates while I sank into my scarf. I don't know why. I just felt weird. Dad took a breath. No one eats until I can. Really? Really? This was serious. The house was silent, except for the murmur of Mick Jagger singing about wild horses. A million butterflies took off in my stomach. We put our forks to sleep on beds of asparagus and watched as Dad tried again. But this time, when he dropped the fork, he dropped his head to his chest, too. Mom sprang up. Let's get some fresh air, okay? She wheeled Dad out into the garage. Layla, Tiffany, and I kept our eyes down and we waited. We waited and waited and waited. 1 minute 10 of waiting. On minute 10 of waiting, I picked up my fork and went for a bite. Layla threw her napkin at me. Stop it, you heard Dad. My stomach growled like it was sticking up for me, but I'm starving. Emphasis on starving. Tiffany grabbed my fork from my hand. How can you be starving? I saw you scarf that Snickers before dinner. I grabbed my fork back. It was a mini Snickers, and Mom would want us to eat. What's the big deal anyway? I drop my fork all the time. It's a huge deal, Tiffany yelled. Why? Before Tiffany could let me have it, Layla interrupted. Stop it, Tiffany. Hold on, people. Did everyone know something I didn't? What's going on? Before they could answer, the door opened and Mom rolled Dad back inside. Their eyes were red, and Dad had a smear of lipstick on his cheek. Mom stacked the still full plates on top of each other and sighed. Who wants ice cream for dinner? I had no idea what was going on, but I did know one thing. I definitely wanted ice cream for dinner. Mom scooped chocolate almond ice cream into mugs and passed them around the table. She took a bite from her cup and spooned a scoop into Dad's mouth, while the record needle softly skipped, reminding us that there was a second side to sticky fingers that needed to be heard. I stirred my ice cream into a milkshake, drank it down, and let myself slip into a sugar coma, trying to forget the fork, the weird, and the butterflies. The next day I swore I'd get to the bottom of whatever it was that everyone else knew and I didn't. But when I woke up, I had a mustache on my neck, cheeks, and eyelids, and it took a while to scrub off. And then I had to get to school, and I couldn't think about it there because I only think about school at school because there's just too much to think about at school. And then when I got home, I was preoccupied with my trick-or-treating loot. Inspecting every single piece for poison took time and precision. But when I finally finished, I decided to take Dad a boatload of unpoisonous Smarties. I tiptoed into the living room because I felt like we should be tiptoeing, both literally and metaphorically. The night before still rumbled weird in my belly. Well, it could have been the sweet tarts rumbling weird in there, but I was pretty sure it was just residual weird from what happened at dinner. So I decided it might be best if my mission to deliver the Smarties to Dad was as covert as possible. I walked up behind his chair so he couldn't see me and slowly stacked them on his table, then started moonwalking back to my room. Hey, Albert. Busted. Why don't you unroll me a couple of sleeves? I gave up my cover and turned back. It's just Maggie. Albert is nevermore. Wouldn't that be Edgar? Dad winked. I piled a bunch of Smarties onto a napkin and ate one. Sometimes I forget how smart Dad is. Probably because he always promotes himself as good looking first and brilliant second. Maybe I'll be Edgar Allan Poe next year. Suddenly I was really excited. Wanna be my raven? His face lit up, but only dimly. Maybe. Whatever. I turned to leave, but he called me back. Hey, Mags, check out this whopper. What? Dad, did you steal my whoppers? No, jeez. I'm talking about the bruise on my foot. I looked down. A light purple bruise covered his entire foot. It was impressive as far as bruises go, and I knew a lot about bruises. I was covered in them. That's nothing. Look at this one on my arm. I rolled up my sleeve and presented a black orb above my elbow. I looked back at his foot. How'd you get it? Dropped the shaving cream. What about you? Ran into the pantry door. He cracked up. But the pantry's always in the same place. I don't know, it just snuck up on me. He was seeming more and more like my cool dude dad from before. More like my cool dude dad who could tell me anything. Hey, Dad, is everything okay? Is everything okay? He rolled the Smarties back and forth on the table and then threw three in his mouth. Well, one huge thing happened last night. One huge thing that changes everything. He paused and I held my breath. Last night, Clyde realized you're the coolest girl ever. I blushed and smiled and gathered up every last wrapper to throw away in the trash outside so Mom wouldn't know I had exceeded her 2 pieces of candy a day limit by 10 pieces. The rumbling weird in my belly was replaced by a rumbling ache, but it wasn't because I was scared. It was because I ate 5 Whoppers and a Crunch Bar and maybe candy corn or 3. It definitely wasn't because I was scared. Chapter 7. A few weeks later, Dad was back to his old dad self. He even tried to get me to watch a scary movie, but I refused. Mom says I'm not allowed to watch that kind of stuff. We don't have to tell Mom, he whispered. No way, Jose, I whispered back. We were flipping through the channels and looking for something unterrifying when something so scary happened I almost died. And it wasn't on TV, it was right next to us. Tiffany cruised by us wearing something super tight and super short, and her face looked like she was competing in some kind of makeup Olympics where instead of medals they handed out fake eyelashes. The scariest part, she grabbed the car keys and walked right out the door. Dad nudged me. Ooh, wanna watch Wild America? I love Marty Stouffer. Dad, you can't let Tiffany leave. She's not allowed to be hot on school nights. Oh, I didn't know that. What should I do? Go after her. He wheeled over to the door and looked out the window. Too late. She's already gone. Maybe she'll be right back. Dressed like that? No way. I bet she's halfway to Vegas by now. Don't you think you're overreacting? I shook my head. She broke one of Mom's biggest rules. Your mom has too many rules. How am I supposed to remember all of them? That's when I dashed into my bedroom. Well, it was 50% my bedroom. More like 30% when Tiffany was going through a breakup. Closer to 20% when she was grounded, which was 90% of the time. And I pulled my third most important notebook out from under my bed. I went back to the living room and flipped right to page 5. See, it's rule number 27. No hotness on school nights. Dad stared. What is this? It's my Law of Mom book. I wrote down every single one of her rules. He was speechless as he paged through page after page of rule after rule, which I expected since sometimes I even blew my own mind. I pointed out one of my favorites: no peanut butter knife in the jelly jar. Honestly, it's just common courtesy. Does your mother know about this? He said at last. Oh, yeah. She helped me write it just before she went to work. Dad nodded. Of course she did. The next day I knew something was wrong on my walk home from the bus stop. At first I thought I'd forgotten something at school. So I stopped mid-driveway and went back through my book bag, which was packed to the brim since we were now on Thanksgiving break, and I wanted to keep up with my studies between slices of pie. Math notebook? Check. English notebook? Check. History paper with a big red on it? Check. French dictionary? Check. In French. Personal copy of The Secret Garden with my personal notes? Check. Ouch. School copy of The Secret Garden with my school notes? Check. Empty bag of candy corn? Check. Nothing was missing. Nothing was out of order. And there was a rogue candy corn at the bottom of my bag, so that was good. But I still had that sick to my stomach feeling. That's when I got worried that something had happened to Dad. What if he'd fallen again? I picked up my pace to a fast walk and swung open the door. But it wasn't Dad who was in trouble. It was Tiffany. Picture it. Tiffany Mayfield, who's already a web of long arms and long legs, tangled with another set of long arms and long legs belonging to a boy. A boy! On the couch. On the couch! Before secretly reading an uncomfortable essay in Layla's 17 magazine a month before, I would have thought this was sex on the couch, but now I knew that it wasn't. They were just wrapped in a sleep hug. But it was still bad, bad, bad. And there next on the couch was our dad, and he was mad, mad, mad. Dad was red faced and yelling at Tiffany and the boy to get up. But they didn't budge because popular teenagers sleep in a near comatose state because their brains are filled with nothing. Tiffany was probably dreaming about dance team nothingness, and the boy was probably dreaming about football nothingness, and it was hard to yell teenagers out of this deep nothingness sleep. So I shook them. I yanked Tiffany's arms. Tiffany, wake up! Wake up! Tiffany yawned. What? The boy pulled her tighter, and now Dad was even more furious. If there was ever a time for a miracle to wake his legs up, it was right now. Dad screamed, Get out! Get out now! This time the boy heard him, and he jumped up, ran out the door, and peeled out of the driveway. Tiffany picked up the blankets and sauntered down the hall. Good God, calm down. We were just sleeping. Come back here, young lady. Tiffany kept walking. Uh-oh. I'm serious, Tiffany. She went into our room and slammed the door. Oh, no, she didn't. Oh, yes, she did. I didn't think Dad was freaking out enough, so I unlocked his wheels and pushed him down the hall. You can't let her get away with this, Dad. He waved his hand away from my chair. Stop it, Maggie. Mom would go after her. He held his wheels. Mom's not here. Now push me back to the living room. But, Dad. Now, Maggie. I wheeled him back, and for a long time we sat in silence. I didn't get it. Why weren't we yelling? Why weren't we handing out a serious punishment? Why weren't we calling Mom? What are we doing, Dad? He kept a steely focus on the hallway. We're fighting a war of attrition. Cool. We were wearing down the enemy by trapping her in a room with no food, no phone, no access to the outside world. Man, Dad was so smart. He knew that eventually even a fox has to come out of its hole. To arm our defense even further, Dad showed me the ransom he was holding in his chair. Tiffany's makeup bag. Ha! Amazing. She wasn't going anywhere. Tiffany hadn't left the house without makeup since birth. After an hour passed, I had my doubts, but an hour two his plan worked. The door creaked open, and quiet, long-legged footsteps tiptoed down the hall. When Tiffany turned the corner, she found Dad and me with our arms crossed waiting for her. Dad spoke first. Well, hello, Tiffany. I echoed him like a corporal to a captain. Well, hello, Tiffany. Okay, Maggie, you can go to your room now. No way, Dad, we're in this together. Go. Now. Fine. Fine. I walked to my room and pretended to shut the door. When the coast was clear, I snuck back and hid behind the couch. No way was I going to miss this. This was going to be good, and I needed to hear every detail. It wasn't every day that Law of Mom Rule 45, no boys allowed in the house, was broken. I don't know what the big deal is, Dad, Tiffany huffed. We were just sleeping. What an idiot defense. Dad let out a deep breath. There's no way you're spooning. I hoped he wasn't banning all spooning because I ate some serious ice cream on that couch. Well played, Dad. Well played. It's not fair. Layla's boyfriend is over all the time and you never yell at her. She's your favorite. Amazing. Not only was this a good argument, it was totally true. In Dad's eyes, Layla could do no wrong. When Layla came home from spring break with blonde hair, Mom freaked, but Dad just sighed. Well, blondes do have more fun. When Layla failed geometry, it was the teacher's fault. When Layla needed money, he always opened his wallet. But when Tiffany wanted money, he always asked, "What for?" And when I wanted money, he always said, "No more candy, Maggie." Layla was his favorite, and we all knew it. This isn't about Layla, it's about you. Tiffany burst into tears. I almost felt bad for her. I put myself in her shoes, even though I would never wear her shoes because they were too tall and I liked to be down low where the action was. I thought about Clyde and me on that couch, hugging our guts out while watching a documentary about whales because we're thoughtful and adorable. I thought about our mansion and our Porsche and the 2.5 kids we would have according to the last game of MASH I played. And then I had a mini panic attack and reminded myself, career first, Maggie, love second. Dad wheeled over to Tiffany and tried to console her. I'm just worried about you, honey. I see so much of myself in you, which is good because I'm really cool, but bad because I've done some really uncool things. I don't want you to make the same mistakes I made. Whoa, that was heavy, and Dad never got heavy. Where did it come from? I racked my brains. Was it a Dylan lyric? Maybe an early Springsteen rarity? I couldn't come up with anything. I decided it must be a Dad original. Tiffany was too Tiffany to understand what he meant, so she unleashed the line she'd fed Mom many times before. I just want you to love me for me, Dad. Dad wasn't buying it. You can't use that on me. I invented that in like 1968. Tiffany sobbed some more, and I think Dad was getting sick of it because he changed the subject entirely. Did I ever tell you about Patty Applegate? No. Dad time traveled, and this time he went back to when he was Tiffany's age. Apparently, Patty Applegate was the head cheerleader when Dad was on the football team. It was the beginning of his senior year, and he had a real shot at quarterback. But then he started seeing Patty and got distracted, and by the first game, he'd missed too many practices to even be considered for quarterback. And the worst part? Patty dumped him a week later for the kid who did make quarterback. And that guy wasn't even half as good looking as me, Dad said. I wasn't really sure what kind of lesson he was trying to teach, but Tiffany seemed to get it. And Tiffany doesn't get anything. She can barely work the hairdryer. Tiffany promised no more boys in the house, and Dad promised no more embarrassing freakouts. Okay, Maggie, you can come out now. Busted. I tried to cover my tracks. Hey, I lost a pen. Thought it might be under here. Tiffany gave me the evil eye. Oh, really? Did you find it? No, I didn't. But I did find a boy back here. Is he yours? Tiffany looked like she might murder me. Dad held up his hands. That's enough, Maggie. Just as Tiffany and I were about to time, get into it big time, headlights flashed across the wall. Yes! Mom was home. I headed for the door, but Dad cut me off. I'll tell her what happened, Maggie. Why don't you just go start on your homework? I don't have any homework. I did it all on the bus. Can't I greet my hard-working mother at the door because I love her? No. He was on to me, so I sidestepped his chair. And I need to tell Mom something really important. He stopped me again. I'll get the door. You go do something else. Something useful. Whatever. I waited for Dad to open the door, but when he did, Mom wasn't even there. It was Layla. And she was mid lip lock with her boyfriend Bobby. Ha! Amazing. Layla finally came up for air. Oh, hi, Daddy. I was just coming in. Bobby wiped Layla's lip gloss off his mouth. Hi, Mr. Mayfield. It sure is good to see you again. Daddy yanked Layla inside and slammed the door. Layla lost it. Daddy, what are you doing? Go to your room. Everyone, go to their rooms. Tiffany refused to go to our room if I was in there, and Layla had to get something out of Bobby's truck, and I desperately needed a juice box. Everyone was screaming when Mom opened the door. Hello? I'm home. What's going on in here? Dad yelled, Everyone, stop! And then he made Mom push him into the garage. They talked in the garage more and more. I guess it was neutral territory, kind of like Switzerland, but with no Swiss miss. I imagined what happened next was Dad filling Mom in on what terrible people Tiffany and Layla were turning out to be. And he probably told her I was the only daughter with any common sense, and that they should really send me to a fancy college, because I would never, ever disappointed them. But when Mom wailed back Dad, I got sent to my room, and this time I actually went because Mom walked me there. Where was the trust? Layla and Tiffany stayed in the living room, and I heard a lot of mumbling, followed by what I assumed was, Yes, ma'am, and yes, sir. When Mom opened my door, she almost knocked me and my ear out. Okay, Maggie, it's your turn. Wait, was I getting in trouble? I sulked into the living room and sat on the couch with my back turned away from the enemies who said they were my parents. I mean, how could I know for sure if they were my real parents? I didn't have any concrete proof they weren't Russian spies. So, what if they couldn't speak Russian? Maybe they were that good. Mom turned me around. Maggie, we know you have a lot of opinions, but when it comes to parenting, you have to leave it to me and your dad. I didn't do anything. Dad shook his head. Listen, Mags, you have to trust me that I'm doing the right thing. You chiming in only makes matters worse. Trust him? You had to be kidding. I liked the guy, sure, but trusting him was questionable. He tricked me too many times. Like my first bike ride without training wheels, he swore he was right behind me and he wouldn't let go of the seat. And sure, I should have questioned how a guy with a cane was running, but still, he said that he was, and I believed him. And then I fell and I cried, and he said he was sorry, but sorry didn't cut the ketchup. I hate mustard, so let's just say his track record with trust was spotty at best. I wanted out of the living room, so I promised to mind my own beeswax, but my fingers were crossed in my mind, so the promise didn't count. We all went to bed kind of angry, even Layla, and she usually smiled so much it was annoying. But when I went to brush my teeth, she closed the bathroom door in my face, and she was never mad at me, mostly because she barely knew I was alive. I crawled into bed, closed my eyes, and couldn't stop thinking about how my sisters just didn't get it. Boys were stupid. Well, all boys except for Clyde. And then I couldn't stop thinking about the good old days when Mom was always around. She maintained a certain level of order that I not only followed to a T, but respected to a T too. And so did Layla and Tiffany. Sure, getting to know Dad more was great and all, but I always figured I would get to know him eventually. Like when he moved into the White House when I was president, and I put him in charge of the rock and roll archives at the Smithsonian. I just wanted to go back to how it used to be. Chapter 8. The next morning, Mom woke me up extra early to go get the last minute staples for our Thanksgiving feast. We had to beat the crowd to the store, and I was happy to spend some quality time with her. Plus, someone had to make sure we got extra jumbo marshmallows for the sweet potatoes and not just the regular jumbo kind. I got a cart, and Mom navigated the store fearlessly. She's the Magellan of the grocery stores. Magellan was the explorer, kind of like Christopher Columbus, but with a way cool beard. We found everything we needed in less than 10 minutes, checked out, and loaded the overflowing bags into the car. When my seatbelt was buckled, I decided it was safe to get something really important off my chest. So, what's up with you and Dad? Mom looked overwhelmed. I could tell she was running through a number of possibilities in her mind, but finally she just asked, What do you mean? I mean, why did you guys totally freak yesterday? What are you talking about? I opened the marshmallow bag, put one in my mouth, and mumbled, Everyone has lost it. Waya and Tiffany have lost it too. Mom turned down the radio and pulled the bag out of my hands. You girls have to understand that all of this change is hard for me too. And it's especially hard for your dad. All those years you were growing up while he was at work, he missed a lot. And now he's home and there's a bunch of teenagers roaming around the place. And they are kissing boys and misbehaving. She looked at me when she said misbehaving. I didn't do anything. I yelled it just one last time so she knew for sure that I had not done anything. She continued as if she hadn't heard me. But to him, you are all still little girls. I ate the last marshmallow I'd hidden in my pocket. Hey, I'm not a widow goo. I'm too smart to be a widow goo. You know what I mean, she sighed. When we pulled into the driveway, we could hear the speakers blasting inside the house. Dad had the stereo cranked up and was playing Bruce Springsteen live, while Lila and Tiffany cleaned. I thought they would have been sulking through their punishment of getting the house ready for Thanksgiving, but they seemed to be enjoying themselves. Tiffany sang Born to Run into a roll of paper towels while Layla danced with the mop. I was happy to see she was just regular dancing with the mop, not dirty dancing. It would have been a shame to have to tell on her so close to Thanksgiving. After everything was spotless and all the groceries were away, Mom started prepping for the next day's feast. Usually she slaved away in the kitchen alone, which we did we did a bunch of nothing. But as Mom opened a bag of pecans, Tiffany asked, "Need any help?" "Really?" Mom asked. "I can make the pies." I didn't know why Tiffany helped. Maybe she felt bad for almost giving Dad a heart attack the day before. Or maybe she was just bored watching Spaceballs with Dad and me for the billionth time. Although I don't know how that is possible because it is hilarious. But either way, she helped Mom make the pumpkin, pecan, and chocolate pies, and she even let me lick the spatulas. It was almost like we really liked each other. Almost. The next day we feasted. Halfway through the first course, Dad had an idea. How about we each say what we're thankful for? Ugh, really, Dad? Layla, Tiffany, and I rolled our eyes, but Dad insisted. I'm serious. Layla, you go first. Layla cleared her throat. I'm thankful for my car because it's badass. Tiffany was next. I'm thankful for 3 days off of school, and I'm thankful Dad didn't kill me yesterday. Ha, funny. I didn't know Tiffany was funny. She was so skinny, I didn't think she had room for a sense of humor. My turn. I'm thankful for turkey and gravy and stuffing and sweet potatoes and rolls and green beans with bacon. And I'm glad the Native Americans showed the pilgrims how to bake pie. Then Mom. I'm thankful for my 3 beautiful daughters and my handsome husband, who are going to do all the dishes. Finally, Dad. He took a sip from his drink and sighed contentedly. I'm thankful for the 4 lovely ladies who take care of me every day, but mostly I'm thankful that we're all really good looking. It was probably our most perfect Thanksgiving. No one fought, no one cried, no one threw up from eating too much pie. I swear that happened only once, and I was an amateur back then. I can totally handle my pie now. I was doing the dishes and scrubbing the last crumb off the last plate when the phone rang. Oh, great. I bet it was a boy calling to take Tiffany or Layla away from for the rest of the night. I had almost liked hanging out with them all day. They weren't so bad once you got over the fact that their lips were permanently locked to the boys who probably didn't floss. I listened for Dad to hand the phone off, but he didn't. He just kept talking. I turned the water off so I could hear better. Mom was shaking her head at him, but I guess he didn't see her because he said yes to whoever was on the phone. Yeah, that sounds great. Christmas sounds like a great time for a visit. Visitors? We never got visitors. I was just about to ask who was coming when Dad said, All right, goodbye, Mom. Yeah, call me back with all the details. What? Grandma was visiting? She hadn't been to our house in almost 5 years, which wasn't weird because we weren't really big on grandparents. Mom's parents had been a long time in heaven, and Mom didn't really talk about them. And Dad's was a big deal army guy, and we never really saw him because Dad didn't really think he was a cool dude. But now his mom was visiting. This was going to be huge, mostly because I only knew one thing about her. Mom hated her.